I appreciate President Nez and the mayor to be here today. I guess I want to start talking about this virus. And there's a lot of people that we're trying to open up the country. But as we do that, it's critically important that these variances are taken into account. I have had the pleasure of having dealt with most of the CDC folks, Dr. Fauci, the pharmaceutical groups that put the vaccine together. On vaccine, it's moving in the right direction as far as the variants are concerned and being able to address those so far. They're researching whether a booster shot's going to be needed in the fall or later on. And that is also similar to how they've worked with us in the past, meaning Congress and the administration, and that is to continue to make sure that during this pandemic on vaccines, that we fund them and we get it out to the American people as fast as we can. And there's going to be an educational program going out there in some areas that's already pretty busy doing that. And that program is to get the other folks that don't believe, as they have a right to as Americans, but we have to get them to trust that these vaccines are good for them and good for their neighbors and fellow Americans. So that's out of the way. Let's talk a little bit about the Promise Act. 2 years ago, we introduced a bill to address the Navajo Generation Station. We could not get that through. We got it out of committee and out of the House, but we couldn't get it over to the Senate. And so this has changed from the prior one. And I'm just going to go into this particular bill. And that bill basically says the following. We are going to look not just at today, but 10 years back to be able to address the issues of coal generation plants closing down. We're going to see 214 more over the next 10, 15 years close down because of competition from mostly natural gas and a little bit from renewable energy. We are in the process of discussing what they call base load, to how to keep this process going. I was just in a long discussion last week about issues such as the grid itself. We saw what happened in Texas. We've seen what happens in California with the brownouts or blackouts in some cases. We can't have that across this nation. We cannot compete as a nation with other countries if we go down that route. And so this will address tax revenue losses over a 7-year period of time on a decreasing scale so the communities can get used to it. Vocational education training so that people can get retrained in another area, preferably within their own communities. The ability to make sure that local communities do not lose, under the conditions that had been before, lose this huge revenue package for the education districts, the fire districts, and the state will even get some money of taxes that would normally go over that period of time, but for the limited seven years. We're going to try to get it so that the utilities have to tell us 4 to 3 years before they close a plant down, so we don't wait until the crisis hits, but we start doing it beforehand and work towards a process that eventually gets us to be ready for that plant to close. And so that's extremely important. It's important both for the workers and their families, important for the community, and it's important for our grid, because we have to be able to anticipate a long time before something is taken out of that grid into the current conditions we're in today. That's the Promise Act that is going to, it was dropped, I think, a week ago. And the president is here. I'd like him to speak a little bit to the impact of that, and the mayor, to your community here and to the Navajo Nation. President?
Thank you, Tom. And thank you, Mayor, and everyone here today. Good afternoon. It was quite a trip from Window Rock. 3 hours to get here. And my brother there, Jack, thanks for the invite. Next time, send a plane, okay? No, just kidding. Thanks, Jack, and the work that you're doing for the Congressman as well. Well, a couple of things I wanted, since we're talking about the pandemic, let me just share some information with each and every one of you. We've been really focusing on vaccination, just like everyone throughout this country. And what we received from the Indian Health Service is about 238,000 doses. And as of 2 days ago, 207,281 of those doses have gone into the arms of our Navajo citizens, and that's 87.1%. And 83,076 of our people are fully vaccinated. I want to say thank you to our Congressman for pressing on the Indian Health Services to get the vaccinations out. As you all know, no secret, right? We've been hit hard on the Navajo Nation. Over 1,200 deaths, over 30,000 folks have caught the virus. But we have persevered, and we see some light at the end of the tunnel. And, we're neighbors. I bring that out. Mayor and I go way back, and appreciate his leadership as well. Not just staying in the city limits, but also reaching out to the neighboring communities. And that's what I appreciate about your mayor, our mayor here, the city of Page. And I think that's going to be really the momentum here to get past this pandemic. A lot of the communities that are around us, have really reached out to the Navajo people during these difficult times. And I want to say to the constituents, to community members here, thank you. Many donations of masks, donations of even money to help us when the previous administration was slow to assist. But we were able to work together to minimize the effect of COVID-19 in our communities. And as you may have heard, last Monday, 0 cases and 0 deaths. We haven't had that since 6 months ago. And that's just a testament of working together in a region. And I just wanted to say to the mayor and to the congressman and everyone here, last week the Navajo Nation Council convened for a special session. There was a law that was in place where we didn't allow our visitors to, hang around a little bit more than usual because of the high numbers of cases. And so there was a ban on visitors. Of course, they could travel through, but that's why our tourist destinations, our visitor destinations were closed and are still closed. As you may know, we haven't reopened the tour companies down the road here. But the council did overturn that, and I think we are ready to welcome our friends and our visitors back to the Navajo Nation. That bill will come to us, to me, I guess, for concurrent signature. And even though there are incidences and stories of the variant, I think we can slowly transition into reopening our nation. So I wanted to bring that to the mayor's attention. I know he's been very adamant and very vocal on opening the Grand Canyon to Cameron route. And so once that bill gets signed, I don't think we have an issue to reopen that route so that we can share tourists here in the region. The New Promise Act legislation that Congressman spoke about, I think there's a lot of lessons learned that has been placed inside that legislation from this region, right? I know many of us that lived in this area didn't really get heads up in terms of the closure of NGS, including the Navajo Nation. And so in this bill, it mandates that anyone that's going to close a coal-fired generating station must give heads up to the communities in that area 3 years ahead of time. And just imagine, if we had 3 years ahead of time to know of a closure, what we could have been able to push back on, especially when it comes to hitting our economy pretty hard here in the region. But we didn't roll over, we didn't give up, right? I mean, we're now amongst a pandemic, but there is some light at the end of the tunnel with the recovery. With the rescue plan that has been approved by Congress and signed into law by our president, we see some need for change in our community and boosting our economy. And that's the same here in this region as well as the Navajo Nation. So I just wanted to commend the congressmen here for their hard work in Washington to help their citizens throughout these difficult times. And now we're looking at bouncing back, building back better. I think that's the word that's been used a lot. And with the infusion of these dollars, it could help get us to rebound to those good old times that we saw the economy in helping out our people in our communities. So we're looking forward to that reintroduction, and then also helping out with the jobs, the folks that lost their jobs or that got transferred out, getting them retraining, and also have a plan in place to help the local economy. I know that we're 2 years kind of behind on this one, but just imagine this bill will also assist other communities throughout the country in their closure of coal-fired power plants. Again, using the lessons learned from this region to help others. And so we're looking forward to getting that across the finish line in Congress. And we're hopeful and prayerful that it will get approved and signed into law by our president. And so we've been going through some difficult times lately as a region, but we are resilient, all of us. If you put your hands up, we're all five-finger beings, and we'll be able to move forward in unison and helping each other out for the betterment for all five-finger beings in this area, in this region. So thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you so much, Congressman, and God bless each and every one of you. And thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Brings me back out to Western Agency. I just had to wave as we drove through my home community of Shanto. If you know, I come from Shanto, just down the road, and was privileged to be elected as president of the Navajo Nation. So relocated to Window Rock, and it's a lot different. You can't see miles and miles there in Window Rock, but here it's such a beautiful area. I know we're all blessed. So thank you so much. Thank you, Congressman. Mayor.
So, thank you, President. Thank you, Tom. A little bit about the CARES Act. We're so happy to see that actually coming to fruition. Congressman and I talked about this a couple years ago when we were first trying to get this thing done. Most of you know here, whenever I refer to Page, I refer not only to the city of Page, but I also refer to the region. So from the standpoint of the CARES Act, Navajo Generating Station had a region impact of approximately $66 million a year annually. So with that closure in November of 2019, that was a big hit in itself. This past year, March rolled around, and we had the pandemic shut the rest of everything down. So it's been a double whammy year for our region, which has been of a great, great impact to all of us. We've all suffered, and now we're in a time that we can rebuild. We've always been a resilient people in America, in the USA, and Navajo Nations and all of the Native and First Nations people around here. So we are resilient, and we're coming out of that. So as we move into a new norm, whatever that might be, the last one I can think of what changed the world was 9/11. We've got a new norm that came out of that. We know what that is. We're still dealing with that. We're going to have a new norm out of the pandemic, and for us locally, we're going to have a new norm and the direction that we move into with the closure of Navajo generating stations. Those are all challenges that I think we're up to meet. So I thank the Congressman for the CARES Act and his resilience and keeping pushing this, because sometimes you keep pushing and pushing something and you're rewarded when it actually starts happening, and I think we've got that now. For the Navajo Nation President Jonathan Nez, we have worked together before and more recently during this pandemic, and we will continue to do that and support our region together where we can help one another. I want to keep those lines of communication open, and the President and I were just talking just a couple minutes ago, and I shared with him that we still need to get a lot of shots in arms. They are doing fantastic. We're going to work. He's made a suggestion that we might be able to work something out so that we can get more shots in more people's arms. We're going to be working how we can do the details on that and see if we can't come up with this so that we can have our own mass inoculations done here if people want to take advantage of that. So I thank the Navajo Nation President for sharing that with me, and you know that I'm always going to be there to reach out and try to work with you. As we have our differences of opinion in certain areas, we know that we can communicate those things, but we can still remain friends and work with one another for our communities. So I want to thank everyone that took time out of their day to be here, listen to Congressman and the President and myself. You guys get tired of hearing me sometimes, but No. Well, I could go on then, but I don't think so. I'm not going to press my luck, and it's good seeing my friend. Where'd he go? Where'd Jack go? Did he sneak out? Yeah, he did. Jack Jackson. No, he's with you, right? Okay, he's not your driver, is he?
No, Keith is.
Okay, all right. Well, good. So anyway, got an opportunity to refresh some memories there. I want to thank you both for reaching out to us and this opportunity to kind of get the news out to the people in Page. So I thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to sit down also and stuff. Yes, sir.
I have a couple more programs.
Oh, okay. All right.
No problem.
I'm turning it back over to.
I just want to get information to the community. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Looking into the future, that's what the CARES Act was about. That's what the relief bill that just came through Congress and was signed by the President is about. It's hard to spend $6 trillion. It was an effort to get to where we got, mostly bipartisan, except for the last bill. And most of the things within that bill were agreeable. Everybody wanted to get the issues done, but the final number just was too far for some of our colleagues. But that bill is a path to the future of America. We could have done what we could have done back in March of last year. The bill came out in April. We could have done nothing because we didn't know a lot. But we started to fund vaccines at that bill, the first bill of 6 now. It was a small bill, $8-something billion, but it started that process with the pharmaceutical companies and agreements to be able to go. And there hasn't been a time since then that the vaccination program has not had the funding, along with the other programs addressing the virus. Not one time. We've never been short of the capital necessary. Now, getting it down to folks, whether it's Small Business Administration or others, that was complicated at first. It's worked itself out, not to the best position, because it takes a lot of time to address that within the process. I want to talk to you a little bit more about the future and the infrastructure bill. I don't know how much it's going to cost. I heard $3 trillion out of the White House. I don't know if that's for 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, but I do know this, that what we're fighting for to make sure it's in the bill, and we have agreed within our committee, the Energy and Commerce Committee, we've agreed bipartisan process that we will ask for $100 billion for rural areas and areas that are underserved or the people that cannot afford broadband. It's so important for us as we look out into the future that we can compete, that our children have a good education, that telemedicine can be delivered at high speeds, that the economic development of an area, which in this day and age is almost reliant on that. I mean, I know so many farmers that want to have it just so they can keep track of what they're doing and new information from outside. So, and it's going to go to those areas. And I believe that the first $100 billion, when we mix it with private capital, will do a lot. And that's for both tribal entities and for rural America. And going back to the CARES Act, the rural development, the development that was able to go to help people on Navajo, but also to address many of the needs on the Navajo Nation have been long past taken care of between the federal government and tribal entities, have been started to be taken care of. And now this last bill that came out, the tribes across the nation will get $20 billion. And that'll get some of the work done, a lot of the work done. But there's still much more to do because of the conditions of the road systems, of the sanitation, of water, and healthcare. And we're working healthcare through Indian Health Services. So the process was fighting this virus, not letting our nation get into a position where, sadly, it was hard to get food out to people. But we didn't have a nation that starved its people. And we didn't have a nation that didn't think of its businesses. And we ended up that we're going to come out of this, as far as everybody that went through this nation right now is going to come out stronger than any other nation on earth, because we invested in our future. We invested in people. We invested in ability to overcome this terrible virus. And I believe it's a tribute to the people of America that they worked so hard to do this. And we talked earlier, Mayor, about what that has meant here and what it can mean. You're going to get another tranche of money. I forget the exact number. And President Nez, the work that was done there, what both of you have done in this process has been outstanding. President Nez, I know, because I went up there with one of them, the food chain. I didn't want to go up too much because of the fact that I don't want to bring a virus to tribal land either. But what occurred in bringing people together, whether it was delivering food on Navajo or making sure vaccines got here and making sure we had the amount, that's because of the investment that was put in. And yes, businesses were hurt profoundly, but they're starting to come back. We have to help those 400,000 plus that went under if we can. But we must keep the foundation of our economy in place. And that took over, of that $6 trillion, that took over almost $800 billion to do that. So across the nation. So Mayor, do we want to take questions or let everybody go out and not have to hear you again?
We can take questions. I would like to introduce one other person.
You got it.
That's come in, if I may, and then we'll go back. And then, Chairman, if after we do some questions, I'm going to relinquish the floor to you if you'd like. I'd like to introduce our Hopi Chairman, Tim, and I've only heard the name twice, and it's very difficult. So I'm going to let him introduce his last name. But this is a historic time. We've got the Navajo Nation president, the chairman of the Hopi Nation here, and a congressman all in the same room at the same time. So quite frankly, that is a first for our community, but it won't be the last.
Nope.
So you're coming back, and you can bring some friends, those ones that we haven't seen so much. So I'm going to introduce Tim, and please, I apologize. I don't want to show disrespect by not being able to pronounce your name after only hearing it twice. But please introduce yourself, sir. And there's a live mic there.
Hey, Congressman, how are you? Honorable Mayor, thank you very much, and there's absolutely no need to apologize. I'm so used to having people struggle with my last name. Yeah, even some of my own community members, they'll get it wrong at times. I do want to start out by thanking the City of
Let
Page.
them know what it is so they know I didn't do so.
My name is Timothy Nuvangyaoma. I have the honor of serving as the chairman of the Hopi Tribe, and maybe I should slow it down a little bit, Nuvangyaoma. But I do have the honor. Yeah, Tim's totally fine too. Yeah, I've been called Chairman Tim, and it makes it a lot easier for others in the room. But I'm honored to be here in such great company. Mayor Diak, I appreciate you giving us an opportunity to come to your beautiful city. I was here over the weekend just getting away from the rigorous tasks that I think we're all familiar with and dealing with this pandemic. So it was super nice. I don't think we have all the summer tourists here yet, so I didn't see the congestion that we normally see here on those busy weekends that I'm sure you all are familiar with. But I also want to thank Congressman O'Halloran, and seeing President Nez again is always good, because his leadership, I think we have taken on a tremendous task since, for us anyway, last March when the COVID hit and we had to start issuing executive orders and really deal with something that was unfortunate. So it really couples in with a lot of the inequities and the disparities that I think tribal nations have felt, and those communities that are impacted by the coal and the industry shutting down. And so with, Congressman O'Halloran as one of our champions dealing with this whole situation and bringing this bill forward, we're very encouraged that we hopefully see something get through the legislation to bring some kind of something back to the communities that are impacted. For the Hopi Tribe, the loss of, some of this revenue has really devastated us. We're losing about over, I would say, 85% of our general fund income. And it's devastated us in a lot of different ways. Coupled in with the pandemic, we have the continued social behavioral situations have really developed, and, we're looking at now having to make those tough decisions on, maybe releasing some of our employees and some of the services that are so critical and vital to our community, being upset by this situation. And those communities that have been impacted, I know we all feel the same thing. Services that we have to render to our community members, it's a hard pill to swallow, but that's kind of what we have to deal with and take a hard look at what impacts it has on all of us. And so with the new Promise Act, I'm hoping there'll be some relief in that for all of us. The new Promise Act will benefit communities like mine that have been so decimated, but it's a steady march away from the coal-based industry, coal-based energy. And I do understand that federal policies are moving towards cleaner energy sources, but that doesn't mean that the Hopi Tribe and similar communities that have relied on coal should be left behind. The new Promise Act would provide financial assistance to help the Hopi Tribe and the surrounding communities to transition our economies away from the reliance on coal while averting cuts to critical services as we struggle to replace revenue. The bill would also create White House Council on Energy, energy transitions to finally provide the technical assistance and focus that impacted communities need. So when I look at the work that the Congressman is doing, I know we had, seen this bill come out sooner, and now that there's a breath of life being breathed back into it, we certainly do want to stand behind the efforts of the Congressman in trying to bring some of those remedies back to those impacted communities. And for us, I do support that, and I'm hoping that, and I'm always optimistic that we can drive to a better future for these communities like ours, Navajo, to really see some of that relief come forward for all of us. So, again, Mayor, I hope this isn't the last time. I would like to see, President Nez, myself, and the entire Arizona delegation come forward, in support of a lot of these, because it's really going to take all of us. It can't be one person alone. And again, I referenced the fact that the Congressman has really been a champion in this, but if we can all come together in support of moving forward and bringing some of that attention this way that impacts all our communities, I'm hoping we can all be on board. And I certainly welcome an opportunity, Mayor, to come visit your beautiful town again, your beautiful city here, and do what we can. So I'll go ahead and yield the floor back over to you, Mr. Mayor, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer some questions as well.
Any questions for Tim? Okay. Congressman? And then questions for
Opportunity to ask questions if you want, myself, President Nez, Tim, or Mayor. So anything, sir?
Well, I'll make a comment to start with. I've been a resident here for 44 years, and as Bill said, it's nice to have somebody that realizes that northern Arizona doesn't stop at Flagstaff. And that affects the reservation, it affects the cities, everything else, and it would really help us a lot to get more representation that would realize that we are here. One of the biggest struggles we fight, because we're a tourism industry here, that's all we have left. Now that the plant's gone and everything else. And it's so critical that people realize that there's more than just Flagstaff in northern Arizona or Sedona. And there's a lot of opportunities here. So I appreciate you coming. Thank you very much. It's awesome to see people up here, and thank you.
We'll be back. We have been a number of times. You don't know, the district is as large as the state of Illinois. So it's a lot of moving around. The Navajo Nation is as large as West Virginia, including all 3 states. And Hopi is, where are you at? Hopi is how many square miles, do you know?
We're about the actual size of Delaware. If
Delaware.
you put it in that context with states, we've got a land base that would encompass about that size.
But any other questions? Boy, this is one of the easiest crowds I've ever had in my life. So I'll say this. Thank you for being here. This is a great time to have the chairman and the president and the mayor and myself here. I think we need to do a little bit more of that in the future. And I also feel that we are going to come out of this strong. Americans are strong people. They like to work in a crisis situation together. And we'll continue down that process. And the example that I saw time and time again throughout District 1 is one of caring about their neighbor, which rural America does, which tribal lands do, making sure their children were protected. And I saw some of the greatest examples both in our towns and the tribal nations that you could ever want to see. And I didn't hear, there hasn't been one time that somebody in Arizona's first congressional district has ever come up to me and said, shame on you for doing that and making us spend $6 trillion. Not one time. What I saw was the mayor, the chairman, and the president, and the American people trying to save one another's lives and get this thing over with. And we'll continue to work down that path. We are not going to allow these variants to defeat us. They are a challenge, but we will overcome that challenge too, if that day comes. And thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate it. Mayor?
Thank you. I want to echo those comments and thank everyone for being here today. But before this is over, gentlemen, you're not done yet, because we got one more photo op. So everybody that took a picture could erase that one, because we're going to include the chairman in this one. Because this is a historic time for Page, as well as the Navajo Nation, the Hopi Nation, and I hope you too, sir. So can we get you up here? And I want to be next to Tim this time, because between you two, I'm you're only getting this much of me, because the rest of it's showing your knees. Just a second, I'm going to get ready here for one for me too.
I think we're all smiling under our masks. One of those things.
You see the wrinkles?
Can I jump in with you guys?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Oh. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
See you tomorrow? Yeah.
So-
Center.